Hello, and welcome to another quarantine edition of Scions of the Southland. Jake and I are recording from our childhood homes. This is a bit of a weird spot for us. As always, I am Akshay Warren, and like I said, Mr. Jake Grant is joining me from Chicago. Now, Mr. Grant, how are you doing today?
Doing fine. I left my house to go get pick up dinner. And they're doing beer takeout, so that was interesting. And other than that, keeping on. Gotta, you know, figure out how we do senior design without us all being able to be in the same place. But other than that, just trying to graduate at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Atlanta also has that too. Um, if I was so inclined, I would totally try that out. Alas, I'm not particularly inclined most of the time. Um, but yeah, so look at the calendar here. We have not podcasted in a month,
Yeah.
and to cut right to the chase, the sports world has kind of come to a complete halt. Um, in about 2 weeks after we last recorded, and it's kind of unprecedented. And honestly, when we sat down to do another episode, we really didn't know what to do. Wouldn't you
Yep.
say?
Yeah. I think we were talking about doing one because I had a midterm and then was going out of town for a swim meet that week that we skipped, and then the next week was the week that everything went to
It
hell.
went sideways,
Yeah,
sideways,
it's a little
and
bit hard to have a sports podcast with no sports, but
it's
we can.
especially hard to have a spring sports podcast when all of spring sports get canceled in a 5 day span.
Yeah, whether you like to watch them or you're like me and you had a nationals meet coming up or whatever, it's a tough time to be in this little corner of the world. But we do what we must. We are going to podcast about something. What will
Yeah,
it be?
and
We don't really know, but we will get you your content.
we'll get some content. Like I said, it's the alternative content hour. It's the quarantine hour. And honestly, like, look, we could talk about the virus in depth. We could talk about the impact that it's had on the sporting world, and our communities. And I think there's loads of possible content that many people smarter than us could probably do on this, honestly. But at the same time, I think a lot of us, a lot of you, come to from a rumble seat for entertainment and to get away from real life, and that you go to sports to get away from those stresses in real life. So I think our job is to continue being that grounding point and continue being that, that source of fun, that source of entertainment. So I think that's what our plan should be for today.
Yeah, I do have one comment, and this is something I just realized as I was sitting here. Um, in terms of my gainful employment over the coming summer, it was a really bad time to choose to go from the packaged single-use private label water bottle manufacturer to the aviation industry. But
Oh yeah.
in that, things are going great.
Hey, Jake, as a wise man once told me, stonks only go up. You know,
Yeah, fair
they
enough.
only go up, and if they go down, well, they only go up.
Well, in the meantime, we will get back to what sports we got. I guess are we gonna rip off? Pardon my take
Oh,
first,
we're
or
absolutely going to rip off part of my take. Let me introduce ourselves. So let's talk. So at this point, the academic year is over. Well, the athletic year is over. The academic year, judging by Jake's test schedule, is not over. Um, so let's talk best moments from the 2019-20 athletic year, Mount Rushmore style. We're going to do it snake style. Jake, why don't you start off?
Oh, okay, perfect. I think the first one's easy, and as much as it breaks my heart to not say a non-rev sport, being me, I have to go with the win against Louisville in basketball. Um, Came into the game not expecting a lot because we had played them pretty close the previous time out on the road, but just one of those things where at least as a student and a fan in person, I was there just ready to yell and I guess do what you can for the team and just see some good basketball. Previous year out, actually previous 2 times they'd come to Tech, it was not great to watch, but they definitely put out a better show for that wasn't the last home game. I think it was like the
It was
last
the
big.
second to last. It was like there were
They
a
had
couple left. I think there was one with Clemson left. And there
Yeah.
was one versus Pitt left. But it
Oh,
was the
and
last.
yeah, it was the last big boy game.
Yeah.
That was the last chance Tech had to like prove themselves, I guess. And then they went out and got the best win since I've been a fan. Granted, that's only like 5 years now, but I'm sad we didn't get to storm the court, but it was a well played game. It was a little bit of an ugly game at stretches, but I mean, it's Georgia Tech basketball. If you want them to win a game, you have to make the other team play this brand of Passner ball, which is, and it helps
God,
this year
it's
that
like Iowa. It's like watching Iowa play football. Like
yes,
I honestly, it is like when Passner in those wins that he has over good teams, he's figured out a way to play defense to bring that other team down to his team's offensive level. And from a certain perspective, it's a very interesting theory and a very interesting thing to watch. But also, it's not pretty. It's not good. It's not like great basketball to watch. It's not great entertainment.
yeah, I mean, I'm somebody who really appreciates the small ball in baseball and the triple option in football. So I rather like seeing, our guys diving on the floor for a ball or, Alvarado getting 9 steals in a game. That kind of nitty gritty stuff. Cause I think and I guess my reason why I always like the triple option it was like a smart brand of football. I think, Georgia Tech may not play the most elegant, the razzle dazzle Steph Curry Davidson '08 level. Hi, Josh. My brother is commenting. Yeah, it's a Akshay. What's the buzzword for the offense? NFL style elite pro.
Yeah. The high powered, the
Yeah.
pro style, I don't know. I'm just riffing here.
It's more pass based than the triple option was.
Well,
yes.
I mean, like, but isn't pro style more like run?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on what you mean because the pro style has evolved over the last couple years. Now we're just getting into a theological debate at this point.
A theological debate. Last time we had a theological debate, we were talking about Luther and Calvin, but continue.
Hey, Luther, Calvin, Pop Warner, John Heisman, same thing.
Yeah, same difference. But no, I guess the best way to put it is
you don't run it every single play.
Yes, we do not run it every single play now, but we're not bombing the ball down the field. Mm-hmm. All right. Bye, Josh. To our listeners, that's my brother. Like I said, or like Akshay said before, we're at home. But I think Passner makes his players play a very brainy brand of basketball. Especially, wow, that was hard to say.
Say that 3 times fast. Don't actually do that.
No, I'm not. But he makes them scrap and get on the floor, and he's always changing his defenses. And the con of that is he often has a quick hook and doesn't let his players get in the groove or make mistakes. But there's pros and cons to everything. I rather like the Passner ball kind of scrimp and save, and I think that's what we saw in Louisville. Is we made them play an ugly game. We shut them down. We played good basketball, but good Georgia Tech basketball.
Yeah. All right. Let me pivot here to give my first pick. So I'm gonna go with the volleyball NIVC. I don't remember what it was called. Championship win at South Dakota. So I think we sort of were texting back and forth during this one. This one was at South Dakota, so we were watching this on some. I mean, it wasn't bootleg, but it certainly was. I mean, it was a student-produced South Dakota stream. I think I was on a bus the entire time during the third set, back on the West Coast. Um, I mean, this was a really fun game because you had Tech take set one in pretty close matchup, and then South Dakota takes set two. Then takes the next two sets in extremely close fashion to close
Yep.
out the game. And honestly, you don't like you look at that box score or you look at that 3-1 line and you think, okay, this is a more or less a domination. Like, okay, they dropped the one set, but they probably were fine. Like, they're probably pretty good and like 7+ points up on the other team in the other two sets. But this one was a cover to cover, like very dramatic outing for Georgia Tech volleyball in a really, really impressive season. And it, in many ways, it like this one game encapsulated everything about this team in 4 sets. And I think I enjoyed that part the most.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I was actually home for that game, but to watch, uh, I've learned a lot about tennis in the last like year and a half. That's been my goal as like a sport that happens on campus that I never like would call myself an expert on before, as like something to learn about. And Ethan Kreger, who's from the Rumble Seats resident tennis expert, said to
Podcast
me,
host emeritus.
yes, said to me that you can see the line 6-2 in a set for tennis and go, wow, that was domination. But it was really could only be decided by 4 or 5 points. And it's like a close game. And I think that volleyball match was a perfect exhibition of that kind of philosophy and like in terms of volleyball and tennis being scored in like a point set mat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Point
yeah. And I think on top of that, just to build on what I was saying about this being an encapsulation of the team, like we saw a lot of things that this team did really well throughout the season. South Dakota was actually able to counter some of them.
Yep.
I remember there was an entire stretch where we were texting back and forth where Mariana Brambilla was getting shelled the entire game. They knew that they had found a weakness in her game and they had started picking on her. But no, like there were rarely was there another team during the course of the regular season that was able to do that. South Dakota in this championship game, also another team that was left out of the NCAA tournament because of strength of schedule, was able to pinpoint that and take advantage of that and keep her out for stretches during the middle portion of this match.
Yeah, and that's a really good point on how they feasted on Mariana Brambilla's defense, because in 2018, Georgia Tech, on the backs of freshman Brambilla and freshman Dowd, jumped out to a 13-0 start, right? And people were like, oh my gosh, like maybe they're the real deal. But Georgia Tech, not has always, but at least in the last couple of years, has played a real soft beginning of the schedule. And when you throw two prime prospects out there, you're going to beat the Long Beach States, the Idaho States, the South
Alabama.
Yeah. And I think the biggest change from last year to, well, I guess 2018 to this year that we just got over is that unless it takes a really good team to kind of feast on her the way a lot of average ACC teams did her freshman year. And I think that combined with her just having so much more faith in her shot, like you knew if it was Brambilla on a jump out of the back row, that thing was going to hit the ground in the square, like it was going to be effective. And turning her into a two-way player, that was kind of the epitome of that match.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's keep going. I think you have a couple more volleyball selections here next up.
Okay. Well, now it's not a snake draft, but yeah. Where were we?
I lied. Okay, I don't know how these things work. I'm an immigrant. All right.
Take your next one. That's how the snake draft works.
I mean, okay. You had a perfectly good alley oop right there, but okay, I'll take it instead. All right.
Okay.
My second pick here was Presley Harvin the third's touchdown pass versus Miami. And I think this whole moment in that game is perfectly encapsulated by the corner that was covering the receiver that was streaking down the field on this play, just quitting on the route. He just ran out of bounds. He stopped. He knew that the ball was in the air and just stopped running. Which every time I watch this play, I will notice, and it just boggles my mind as to how he got away with that, how he thought that was going to be okay, and
Yeah.
not and that like this complete like this isn't to take away from the fact that our punter effectively beat by like considering in the end of that game, our punter effectively beat Miami on a touchdown pass.
Yeah.
Like there's like a level of just comic absurdity to this that puts it on this list for me.
Yeah. I've never been a football player, but I gotta imagine when coach says in practice, "All right, boys, we're gonna break out the trick plays." That's gotta be a highlight, and to actually get to put that on the field, like that's not saying that defines his tenure at Georgia Tech, but if I said to somebody the Presley Harvin pass, everybody's gonna know what I'm talking about for the next 40 years,
Mm-hmm. And just to build off of what you're saying about the trick play, so I was listening to a PAPN. I think this was a couple months ago when they awarded the Heisman. They awarded it to an offensive lineman at an NAIA college, I think in Illinois or Iowa. And they did an interview with him, and he was like, "Yeah, we practiced this like once or twice during the year, and it was super exciting to get to like it was super stressful to put this into action and like knowing exactly what to do and who I was going to throw it to and what reads to make, but it was super fun to actually put this into action and have everything go mostly right." And I think that's probably the same feeling that Mr. Harmon had here, like seeing the corner out of nowhere just die on this route. Hey, while the ball is in the air, it has to feel pretty good.
Well, you really can't draw it up any better than that. So,
Oh, absolutely not.
yeah. All right. On to back to volleyball. Also, can't wear them out with talking about volleyball for 10 minutes straight. But this one kind of segues from one to the other. And I think the besides, winning the NIVC, the defining aspect of this team was its consistency, and especially over the last 2 months, they lost one game, and that was the greatest volleyball match I've ever seen. Like not high school, not like that. That's the one, and it was a relatively unheralded Georgia Tech team going into number 2 in the country, Pittsburgh, on a Friday night, packed house, to essentially take them down to as far close to the line as you can go and lose, right? Georgia Tech won 2 sets in Pittsburgh and then lost the last set 15-13, which was insane. And then, that loss is probably what kept them out of the tournament, but they didn't wilt. They came back from that and won every game from that through the rest of the year. And I think that's best exemplified against the next best team they played, Notre Dame. They played them at home. They had lost on the road earlier in the season and went down 2-1 and were down in the fourth and rallied to win in front of a packed O'Keefe. And if you have never been to O'Keefe, when that place is
small.
full,
It's
and loud.
small and loud. It is it gets unbelievably loud.
Yes. If you're in a tight set or a tight match at O'Keefe, there's not a better sporting environment, maybe anywhere. I would. This is somebody who.
That's a tall wager. I mean, I'll give it to you on campus.
Fine,
I'll
but
give it to you on campus. Not this isn't to put down the atmosphere at O'Keefe, because I love it, and it's like I mentioned this in an article the other day. Like there have been magical games at O'Keefe that during my 4 years at Tech. It isn't to like denounce the atmosphere at all, but when you're like, I mean, it's the best on campus. I don't think you can extrapolate further than that. Is what I'm
I
trying to say.
I've always been somebody who has been into the non-rev sports, and I've always been somebody who's into the off the beaten paths. So I tend to hyperbolize
I'm aware.
these things, but I will say the I don't know. I feel close to people in a tight game at O'Keefe more than going to a good Atlanta United game or going to, I've seen Cubs playoff baseball at Wrigley, which is incredible. And honestly, for my own sentimental value, probably ranks higher than that. But I don't know. There's just something, you're in a special place. It's that playoff baseball at the Rusty C. It's that Atlanta United's going to win a cup. It's that, the Cubs in the playoffs. Everybody has that tie where sports go from just a thing you're watching to, that transcends just the physical action of hitting the ball and winning the game and stuff.
It's where you're in. I mean, it's where you're in the action.
Yeah.
You're ensconced. You're just in this massive wave of emotion that's cresting throughout the arena, and I definitely agree. I agree with you there because I was not. I mean, I wasn't in the house for this volleyball game because I moved, but I was there the previous year for the Georgia game, and that was a similar atmosphere to the one that you're describing. And I think you and I remember that one pretty vividly because that also went to 5 sets, and that was also a close win. And the atmosphere there was just unimaginably awesome.
Yes. And this is a bold take and a bold departure from Georgia Tech sports, but I would very much wager to say that Death Valley, the Clemson one, I've never been to the Baton Rouge one, gives a very similar kind of ethereal, like everybody's very bought in. You
Mm-hmm.
not to hate on.
Well, that's also Clemson being a cult, but continue.
Yes, the Orange Cult, in the same way that you go to any Power 5 conference championship for swimming's a cult, or your Illinois State basketball, in this when you have things that, not to hate on casual fans, and when you have things where everybody is clearly so bought in, you can tell the difference now in the United Center in Chicago versus 2009, 2010, 08, before they got really, really good. You know what I'm saying? The Cubs 2015 versus 2016, 17, that kind of collective angst,
It's a shared struggle, right? I think even beyond, and we should get back to talking about volleyball and finishing up, but it's a shared struggle, right? And I can relate to this because in MLS Cup, when I was there, you could feel the tension in that building.
Yeah.
You could feel everyone thinking and knowing an Atlanta sports team has screwed up every single chance it has had at a major championship other than 1995. And that existential tension is it just permeates the room. It permeates the stadium. Everyone is riding the exact same wave of emotion. And to tie this back to the volleyball game, and at least in my case, the Georgia game was the exact same way as that. You felt, especially after the 2018 one, I want to say that Georgia game was not super far past the football one. And so you felt that the overload or the overflow of angst from that game and anxiety from that football game in this building and in this moment. And it seems like the same sort of wave of emotion carried over from the Pitt game into this Notre Dame game.
Yeah.
To tie it all back together.
Yes. And I think I think for our more casual fans out there who maybe don't have any interest in volleyball or don't have any interest in, like playoff baseball or something like that. If you look for that parallel, the best place you're going to find it is the Thriller Dome when Duke is in town, because that is the one monkey that we cannot shake in basketball and will fill up the stadium no matter what.
Oh, you'll fill up the stadium and students will come out, and students that are not Duke fans, and there are Georgia Tech students that are named Duke fans. It is very strange.
And UNC, it's gross. Ugh.
Yeah, it's weird, but if you if you don't care, or if you don't know about Duke and UNC or all that, you only know about Georgia Tech. Man, you come out for that Duke game and you hate Duke. You hate Duke. It is a rowdy atmosphere.
Yep. And I guess that gets to the point of why aren't students fans like that same invested in like that Louisville game? Like by all logic, it should have been the same crowd. Louisville is just as good this year, if not better than Duke. But it's maybe it's proximity, maybe it's we played them in football for almost 90 years in a row now. I'm surprised there's not more of a rivalry than there is, but it's the existential aspect of it,
Yeah, and for the Louisville game, I think it's and I'll touch on this a little bit later, but it's those for that game, it was the near misses. I think that sort of I don't know how to describe it. Sort of made a dent in that emotion. It's sort of it was more of an exasperation than an anxiety, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, let's keep the gravy train rolling here.
All right, let's pivot. Stay in the I guess talking about schools from North Carolina sphere and the women's sports. We're going to go to women's basketball versus North Carolina. This was on the road.
North Carolina State.
In North Carolina State, sorry. This was on the road. I can't say that I watched all of it, but in kind of I tried to relate all my picks to like overarching themes: the pass near ball, the volleyball transcending, the sport. But I think my biggest concern as non-rev sports guy coming into this year was basically nobody had any idea what to expect from Nell Fortner. Nobody had any idea what to expect with our top two players transferring to a team that was already a juggernaut. And then you go out and you defeat a top 5 team on the road in their quote unquote year of destiny, right? And granted, we had another shot at them and did not win the second time, but Nell Fortner proved this year, went 20-11, probably would have got an NCAA bid, maybe sort of. We'll never know. She went out and proved that she can coach as good as the rest of them and put this team in a place to succeed even more than it did last year without as much talent as they had. So, boom. There you go.
And I think both of us had a little skepticism when her hire was announced, right? And I'm pretty sure we said it on an episode of this podcast last spring. We were like, okay, her history, her resume is interesting. She was coach of the women's national team. Well, it honestly does not take a super genius to coach like a team full of superstars, like the U.S. women's national basketball team is. She was head coach at Auburn and had a mixed career, and I think both of those points made us hesitant, made us skeptical of buying in. But I think now she went 9 games over 500.
Mm-hmm.
There's like quite a few impressive wins in that set, and also a couple of near misses too. I mean, you had that second swipe at NC State that I'm pretty sure was close. You had the first game against the top 15 opponent, which was Texas A&M, which was close.
At Wake Forest, should have had UNC. There's a lot of the Virginia Tech overtime game. Mm-hmm.
I mean, you take 3 more wins. You take 3 of those losses and turn them into wins. and you're looking at not only a tournament team, but you're looking at a top 4, top 3 ACC team this season. I'm pretty sure.
Something
Like that is
that.
wildly successful. That is wildly successful.
And look at the recruiting class she has coming in.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, like, look, it's not going to be number 7 like it was in 18 or 17, 18, whatever it was. But it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. You got 4 4-stars coming in. Those are plug and play quality at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hate to say something this early about next year, and I need to stop getting high, or not. I need to stop being high on our teams.
I mean, those are more or less the same thing. Continue.
Because every time I go, oh, this is the year. This is the year they're going to break through. This is the one.
Fate really
don't.
bites you.
Yeah, I said that about softball this year, and granted, they were just finding their groove. They found what worked for them. Akshay, don't. From where they started, they were finding a groove. No, I think I said something about cross country having an even better this year too. But so I'm not gonna go that far. But I'm hopeful, and I think that they could do good things for us next year.
Okay, let's pivot again, but we're gonna stay with NC State. So my third pick was this part was comical. This one was the funny part. Sweeping NC State in men's basketball and football. Which, I mean, football is one game, so hold your comments. But going 3-0 and effectively, like 4-1 across, football, men's basketball, women's basketball, and, well, yeah, those 3 against a single school is awesome. And Kevin Keats is confirmed not a winner, folks.
We beat him in basketball last year too. At the end of the year, Moses Wright's big breakout game too. It's been a good 14, 15 months to play against NC State if you're Georgia Tech.
Yeah, and there's not really too much more depth to this one. I just really wanted to have a laugh at the Wolfpack's expense.
We showed him in volleyball too. I forgot about that.
Okay, and we'll make it 5-1. But I just really want to have a laugh here at NC State's expense because, man, I mean, look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This Georgia Tech football this year was not good. And to lose to that team, that takes some effort. That really takes some effort. I'm not sorry about that.
Grit, toughness, accountability.
Something like that. All right. Last pick for me on the board. Now that I've gotten the meme out of the way, let me get to the actual serious topic. The last pick on the board for my the Mount Rushmore of Georgia Tech sports things this year is the funding, or the speed at which we've acquired funding for AI 2020. That program is, I mean, the funding goal for $125 million is due at the end of 2020. And the last time I checked the numbers, we are on pace to blow well through that. I think at this point it's March 2020 and we are like 15, if not like 5 or 15 million away from that being fully funded.
Yeah, I mean, the market trends recently are gonna have some people.
Jake, stonks only go up. Stonks only go up.
Should have shorted oil when I had the chance.
Womp womp.
Oh well.
But I think it's still notable, right? Even if you have a bull market aside, bull and bear market aside, you had Todd Stansbury in 2.5 years, honestly the better part of 2, if not less, whip up massive amounts of support for honestly a once financially ailing athletics program. I don't think that I don't think that the financial issues for the program under the previous athletic director, it's not like they weren't public. Like they're pretty well known. I mean, like there was a point at which Paul Johnson was quoted as saying, like, "Look, we just don't have the resources to compete," and that's true. Like, you can effectively buy wins in football. There's a pretty proven correlation between that. And now that we have all of these resources at our disposal, I think this sets up really nicely for the next 5 to 10, et cetera, years, right? And I think things are really looking up for what this program can do, not just on the football field, not just on the basketball court, but really holistically as we look at, each student athlete as not just the athlete part, but also as a person. Like like their scholarships are going to be fully funded. They're going to get like their entire education fully funded, and more students are going to want to come to Tech because of that. Better athletes are going to want to come to Tech because of that, and it's really going to pay off. For in the future.
And again, pulling the non-rev guy card here, you're going to see the most improvement in swimming and track and cross country and these sports that weren't fully funded before that now have the resources to go out and say, hey, don't worry about the scholarships. We got it covered. To say, hey, like, we used to pay you, head swimming coach, 6 figures a year. But no, the Bergmarks, if you didn't know, that position got completely endowed as well. So there's that much more that's not on the books for Todd Stansbury to have to set aside to, cut a check over to Macaulay. So to be able to do that, to kind of untie that hand that's been behind their backs for so long, plus all the resources that are going to be in the new Edge building are going to be, the finest in the whole country. And it's going to be not just your nutrition, but it's going to be your academics, your training, the spaces to do the marketing and the stuff to put not just
and that especially. Okay, let's point that out for a second. Let's stop on that dime. There is no room in that building. They have had to build more. They've had to build more walls to make more office space for people. I think at one point 2 years ago they cut Todd's office in half to make more space for the social media department.
Yep. And then they put up another wall in marketing too, right? I think. I don't know.
Something like that. I don't know. There's no space in that building. That building desperately needs a reno, and it's very close to having it fully funded.
Also, side note, a lot of the floors are like half levels off and stuff. So just making the space that they do have more efficient will be, because they only have that corner. One of the things that drew me to Tech in the first place is the tight campus feel, the fact that you walk out of the east side of the stadium and you're on Britain lawn and not miles and miles of parking lots.
So you're saying the brutalist Soviet architecture of the Edge building wasn't doing it for you?
No, wow, that was number 2. It was a close number 2. But no, like, there's nowhere else for them to go but up and to make the space that they have better for them. And after 40 years, they're going to get a space that's good again, Because when it was built, it was the finest in the land, But that's just how times change, That's why we don't have the same. That's why the Kuhn building isn't the ME building anymore, Sorry, Guggenheim, but you got to move. That's why they build Klaus. That's why they built the biotech quad. It's the same principle in academics and research as it is for athletics.
Yeah, my only qualm about now that we're talking about the Edge building is that, man, that intersection is going to be a complete cluster until that construction gets finished. And I really hope it gets done in a single off season, or at least phased in 2 off seasons, because oh boy, that's gonna suck for any of the freshmen living in those dorms right next door.
Yeah. Random question I just thought of. Since baseball season is canceled, does that mean they can start on that construction?
I don't know about the legality of it, but technically, yes, probably. There's probably, now that Atlanta is under a shelter in place, probably not. Yeah. And I'm sure that construction is not regarded as essential services. probably not starting construction anytime soon, but I'm sure in a post-corona world, we will be seeing that started in haste.
Fair enough. All right.
All right.
My last one. It'll be quick. Closing out the season with a win for the first time in many decades was great this year in Clemson in basketball. But for personal reasons, I put this on my list because it is the 36th game I've seen away from campus / the home venue.
Oh, man, I know why this is. I didn't know what it was when you put it in the document, and now I remember.
So
please continue. I'm not going to ruin this.
I'm a long cursed fan of specifically the Chicago Cubs, are chief among my woes. In fact, for for all of 2011, 12, 13, 14, and 15, I saw 36 Chicago Cubs games and did not see a single win. The odds of that, you can do the math yourself, but very small. And I still have the ticket stubs to prove it if you want to fight me on that. But anyways, between the 12 football games I've seen either at the Benz or away from campus, including a bowl game, the basketball games, the one volleyball game, the baseball games, and then the away Chicago Cubs, Blackhawks, and Wolves games I've seen, I was 0 for 35. Again, astronomically small odds. Until the first weekend in March, swim club had a meet in Clemson on Saturday, so we went up Friday to watch the basketball game and support the team, and they won. It was a pretty good game, tight, came back, no complaints about that, but now I'm 1 for 35. So just because of the relief that was, that makes my makes my top 4.
Yeah, that one was. I mean, I don't think I watched that game either, honestly. But to break your dry streak here, it's a pretty good one. And to close out the season with a win, like you said, I'm not going to complain about it.
Yeah, it was a lot of demons shed, and this is where I plug once again Clemson. I promise I'm not a Clemson fan. I don't like them as an organization, as a school. They are one of our big rivals in swimming.
You don't need to hedge. We believe you.
But making the trip up to Clemson for away games, be it football or swim meets or basketball, is a very good drive, perfect length, nice little town. It's very different atmosphere than Georgia Tech, and I think like the lake is a nice atmosphere, and it's all on one street, so you kind of got you know where to go if you're going to go out, and it's kind of self-contained. The SO Club is great for a meal. If you're looking for a place to get out of Atlanta to go to for an away game, 10 out of 10 recommend Clemson. And the people are 90% really nice. Don't worry about the 10% that are absolutely so mean. But it's a very hospitable place and a very enjoyable place to catch an away game. So check it out. I would recommend it.
Duly noted. I will put that on the list next time I'm in town.
All right.
Finish up with your honorable mention here.
Honorable mention. I think women's tennis deserves a shout out, and probably men's golf too, but we already all knew that they were good. Women's tennis cracking the top 10 in a year that I honestly thought they weren't going to be too good. Got a couple great wins, knocked off top 10 teams. Yeah, great year round. Good. It's nice to be pleasantly surprised. We don't get to be that a lot as sports fans, I think. We either
Atlanta-based sports fans, especially.
But it's never an unexpected, pleasant surprise. The year the Cubs won the World Series, we knew they were going to be good. The year the Blackhawks won Stanley Cups, it was all right, we have Kane and we have Taves.
Okay, see, this is how I know you haven't lived in Atlanta for that long.
Well, I mean, I'm never not going to be a Cubs fan. But we've talked too much professional sports on this podcast. But anyways, it's nice to be completely taken by surprise and be positive, Usually when you're surprised in sports, it's because something's gone horribly wrong, at least in my experience. So
I don't want to talk about that. Moving on. let me give my honorable mention. This sort of builds off of what Jake is saying to an extent. The near misses versus Duke and Louisville by men's basketball this season. They were tough. They were gritty games. Like we were saying, passer ball brought Duke and Louisville down to Tech's level and really made them fight for it. Like in many ways, Duke was not supposed to come out of McCamish with a win, and I bet you Coach K will agree with that sentiment. And Louisville in the rematch didn't get a win. They got completely shut down. Jordan Nwora, supposed player of the year candidate for the conference, had like 2 points and 2 like game actions total. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they did very well in those games, and obviously moral victories don't count on the stat sheet, but I mean, I would give them ones. Like I would give us wins for those. Like sure, points obviously matter the most. The scoreboard is the most important stat on the court, but you can't tell me that those efforts, those performances did not deserve victory in both of those cases.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I got not much to add, but sounds good.